Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bolt Report. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host and good friend, Michael Wax. Michael, we have a very special guest on the show today. I cannot wait. She has been in the reporting field for over 14 years, working for the Lady Lion Insider, WBBH, NBC2, WFLA, and so much more. And now with your Tampa Bay Lightning, she's the sideline reporter, podcast host, and go-to person for basically all things Lightning. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only Gabby Shirley. Gabby, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and joining us here. We're so happy to have you on.
Oh my gosh, Jake, what an intro. Now, I really making me feel old. With 14 years, like, where did the time go?
Time flies when you're having fun, right? As they say. Well, I want to kind of get into your history and starting at the beginning to talk about you started out at Penn State. What got you into wanting to be a reporter?
Oh my gosh. Well, I always wanted to be a sports reporter, which is what I did when I was at Penn State main campus. I'm from Pennsylvania, so a ton of people go to Penn State, and it was the greatest experience. I was involved in any sport I could get involved in. And I guess, Jake, that just stemmed from me growing up playing sports. I'm the oldest, but I have two younger brothers, so they were heavily involved in sports as well. And I figured if I couldn't be a professional NFL player, I might as well try to cover that team, that sport in some form or fashion. But I actually then got my first job in TV news, which I thought I would hate, but I actually liked it. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of sad, kind of exhilarating, all of that, covering a wide range of stories. I was in Evansville, Indiana. Then I was in Fort Myers, Florida. And then I got a job at the NBC station here in Tampa. And when I applied for the news job, they told me they were actually looking for a sports reporter. I told them, well, I know sports. And eventually that just rolled into me doing a little bit of both, which is how I met my now boss at the Tampa Bay Lightning, because I covered the Lightning as well as the Bucks and the Rays. And here we are.
So you had mentioned wanting to cover that team. I presume you mean the football team over at Penn State. Growing up and wanting to, first of all, be a football player and then cover football, was that the sport that you really wanted to continue driving down that pathway? And how did you transition that into hockey?
Michael, great question. I guess I should clarify and say that it could have been football, it could have been basketball, baseball, hockey. I loved all of the sports. I'm from Philly, so I grew up watching all of those sports and cheering for all of those teams. We loved them all. I never played football. I never played hockey. I never played softball. In high school, I played field hockey, which is a sport a lot of people down here are not too familiar with. In the winter, I swam for 1 year. Then I did basketball until I realized I was way too short. And then in the spring, I played lacrosse, which is huge up in the Northeast. So again, I just played a lot of different sports, and I wanted to be involved in them.
So you started out at Penn State, and what was it like to get to cover a prestigious school like that?
Wow. I don't even know if I realized like the magnitude of it all. Again, guys, I was just so focused on being available for whatever sport I could get involved in. I think, and this is terrible, I always think I have an awful memory. I guess I do. But I remember one time, I couldn't tell you how old I was, what team we were playing, but I did get to cover a Penn State football game for the Big Ten Network. And I remember just being like so nervous for that. Again, my role was very minimal, but I was there asking like post game, pre game questions. So yeah, I was just focused on kind of being available for whatever came my way. And I had a pretty good mentor that was connected to women's basketball. So I was really involved with that team. I was a little bit more behind the scenes, kind of editing videos, covering it in that way. But that was always really fun. And I covered Penn State field hockey, again, a little bit of football, some basketball. So I was all over the place.
Being someone that's from the Northeast area, what were some of the adjustments you had to make coming down to Florida?
Well, I was actually born in South Jersey, which is like a big beach town. My family still lives there. That's where my mom grew up. So I have no problem with the beach. I love the beach. Um, Actually, Michael, think I'm not exactly sure how it went down, but I definitely had to get a hold of my pride, if you will. I got the job in Fort Myers, and as a local reporter, still just starting out, they don't pay a lot. And I did not accept the job because I didn't love the salary, only for my dad to suggest, because he had a friend that would go to Florida on vacation. Like, I had rarely been to Florida, maybe once or twice. And my dad suggested, like, hey, my buddy raves about the lifestyle, the weather. Like, you might want to reconsider. And I did. I picked up the phone. I called back the person that I had said, no, thanks, I'm good, and asked if the job was still available. And it was.
We've always joked about here on the podcast that the pitch for JBB to players was, listen, you got great weather, jet skis, and Stanley Cups. What could you not love about coming down to Florida? I want to talk about, so your first sports reporter job was with WFLA right here in Tampa. What was kind of that transition like for you? Because coming down in Florida, Fort Myers, more of a general reporter thing, going from being a general reporter back to, once again, a sports reporter.
Jake, I just have a love for sports, so I was always in the loop following them, just like the average fan. Kind of along the lines of being available for anything that would pop up in regards to sports. In my first two jobs, so in Evansville and then in Fort Myers, and then I did it at the NBC station here in Tampa as well. I would always volunteer to cover Friday Night Lights, like high school football on Friday nights. And again, I wasn't really reporting. That was just me on the sidelines with a camera getting the plays. I would go back and then write the scripts that would match up with the plays. But my face wasn't on camera really. So I tried to stay involved a little bit that way. I put that on my resume just in case was any sort of sports opening. Um, but it wasn't too hard because I always kind of had a pulse on things. Again, I never played hockey, so I still feel like I'm learning like the nitty gritty, like the details of the game that the average fan would not know just watching. But I think that that's really fun. And this is my fourth season. I know a lot, but I still have a lot more to learn. And I feel like if you ever feel that you've maxed out, like it's probably time to move on or do something different, because you never want to be like stagnant with what you're doing. So every day I feel like I'm learning something new here still.
So we tend to ask this question a lot, whether it's to our players, whether we get other people in the organization like yourself on. What does a typical game day look like for you?
Oh, I love that question. Well, and guys, Michael, you probably know this. Jake maybe told you. I had him text me a reminder because my game day is pretty routine, and if something pops up that's not usually on the schedule, but game day routine, especially here when we have a home game at Amalie Arena, the Lightning skate at 10:30. That is their morning skate. So I am here the latest 10 o'clock. Guys, I always envision myself walking in at 8:39. So I have time. It's never I'm always rushing. I'm never late, but I'm always rushing. The Lightning are on the ice at 10:30. Usually that's just a brief, like they're just getting the legs going. Like it's not long at all. Sometimes it's 15 minutes, 20, 30 max. Following that, we are allowed in the locker room to talk to different players. I usually have a couple storylines that I'm kind of focused on for the broadcast later in the day. So, for example, tonight is Hockey Fights Cancer Night. So I talked to Ryan McDonough, who has partnered with AstraZeneca to kind of get the word out to get screened for cancer sooner rather than later. I talked to him about that. Different players, different storylines. Then we hear from John Cooper, always. Sometimes I'll go over to the visiting team because they're on the ice at 11:30, and then they also have the coach available as well as players in the room. I don't always go over there, but sometimes. And then I really just spend like the bulk of the afternoon prepping, listening to those quotes, writing my scripts for different hits throughout the game, going through game notes. If there's a big milestone coming up, guys, I like to live tweet the game, but I don't trust myself to be able to do it accurately in the moment. So I draft some tweets just in case something good happens. I have an arrival interview that goes on the Jumbotron before the game. So whatever time the player arrives, it's usually between like 3:45, 4, and 4:45. We have a list of player arrival times based on who I'm talking to. I have that. And then we usually have a group dinner, 5:24. I know, weird time. And then I'm on the bench by 6:15 for warm-ups at 6:30. And then once the game gets going, I am just in it. If you text me, gosh, if you call me, I am MIA until post game.
So the big thing among, I think, a lot of Lightning or Bolts Nation, you're wearing one of your colorful jackets right now. You get a lot of comments about those jackets. What is your favorite jacket that you've worn so far?
Wow, great question. Um, Guys, I can honestly say I don't know if I'm good at it, but I love fashion and I love clothes. So maybe there's something to be said for that. I have a ton of blazers, and less because I think blazers are the best, and more because I'm always freezing. So that's like, you can layer a little bit. I like short sleeve. You will never see me in short sleeve anything because it's just too cold by the ice. I'm a big baby. I don't know if I have a favorite blazer. I definitely have a few that I like best, but usually it just depends on like what I think looks good on camera. And I guess that's typically like the bright colors. So I don't even know if this one flies, but because it's Hockey Fights Cancer Night, guys, I know the color is lavender. That's my least favorite color. This has like a little bit of purple. You can't even see it, but that's why I picked this one today.
I'm right there with you. It's very cold in there. I'm a Florida baby, born and raised in Florida, so I'm in a full suit, and I'm still cold in there. It's chilly, especially with the ice.
Oh, it's so cold. Always. Like you think I would be used to it, and I'm never used to it.
Gabby, I think you do an amazing job when it comes to telling these really cool stories about the players. And that's one of the biggest parts about being a sports reporter, particularly with Bolt's beginnings and New and Blue. What's the most challenging part for you when trying to tell those kinds of stories?
Huh. Um, I don't know if this is challenging, and I think our guys, well, they know it, but also hopefully know me better than just I'm always bothering them for questions. But like when I get in the room, which is when I see them the most, like I'm usually on a mission. And I don't really like that because I consider some of them because I've been around long enough to be like my friend. So I personally feel a little bit bad every time I see them being like, "Hey, all right, I got these 3 questions for you. I'm recording you. Are you ready?" So from a personal perspective, like that's kind of hard for me. But because Jake, I'm around so much, I hear enough, see enough. I follow everyone just like everyone else does, but I follow everyone on social media. So I feel like I can pull different things from that. I obviously love hockey, but I try to stay away from the nitty gritty hockey because our play by play and our color guys, Dave Randorf and Brian Engblom, they do such a good job covering everything hockey. So I don't want to overlap with them or have a story prepared that I know they're going to cover in the first 5 minutes. So yeah, I try to go outside the box a little bit, and it's not too hard again because I'm around, I hear enough, I see enough. But I personally just feel bad that I'm always like on a mission to learn more about said fun fact that I saw on your social media yesterday.
So between New and Blue, Bolt's beginnings, anything that you might do for a television hit, what has been the project that you've been most proud of so far with the Lightning?
Oh man, that's a great question. I don't even know if I have, because everyone just seems like another opportunity to showcase a story of one of our players, and I just think so much of them. So I'm always honored to do that. I guess, Michael, in a roundabout way, I feel like it's less about a certain project and more about me just like building relationships with these guys. Because I really think so highly of them, and I love learning about their lives and where they came from and how they learned how to block a shot and how they learned how to shoot the puck like that. Like hockey things and then non-hockey things too. And again, I think that just comes from building relationships and less about like, hey, tell me about your mom because I saw X, Y, and Z on her and give me more, give me more. I feel like I do that often, but I think I have built that foundation where it just comes a little bit more naturally. So I think what I'm most proud of overall is just the relationships I've built thus far.
Your first year here, the Lightning were defending champions, and they went back to win it back to back. What do you remember from that 2021 run? And this being, one of your first years, and the Lightning are going all the way to the Stanley Cup.
Jake, it was absolutely incredible, and I don't think I didn't appreciate it, but I was so new and so like for example, and right when we get to that stage, I'm not covering the games live on television because it gets national. But I guess I would say that at that point in my Tampa Bay Lightning broadcasting career, on a game day, if you had asked me to do this podcast in my first year, it would have been no without even a second thought, because I did not have the time, I felt, to even like wave hi to someone, because I was so worried about reading every single word on the game notes and making sure there was not an article online that I had not read and memorized and written notes on and highlighted. So again, obviously an incredible experience, but I felt like, I don't know if I didn't fully experience it because I was so like worried and uh, yeah, but I feel like that's the best way I can put it. I felt like I didn't fully experience like the magnitude of it because I was so like in my own head about, did I say this right? And oh my gosh, like they lost. How am I going to ask a question about a loss? Like still trying to navigate the waters in that regard. So while it was incredible, like I want them to do it again because I feel like I would have a different perspective on all of it.
I think everybody in the organization definitely wants them to go do it again. And this season, we've seen a quarter of the way through a lot of improvements, especially 5-on-5. They've been a lot better of a team. Coming off an unfortunate loss in their last game to Dallas. But what has been the overall feeling of this team, being able to watch them not only up close, but really seeing uh, the difference between this year and last year?
Hmm. I think the team started out pretty strong, perhaps stronger than maybe most on the outside expected. Um, I the team has confidence about them. I don't know if it's winning the two cups. I don't know if it's just having that core that they've had for so long. Obviously, this year without Steven Stamkos, but Victor Hedman, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Andrei Vasilevsky, like they have such a good core group. I guess, guys, I would say that like they have the component to be a great team and win consistently, but somehow through the first 20 games it seems that our losses, like you didn't the team lost the last 60 seconds of the game, you were still thinking they would find a way to win. Like it was a silly mistake that ends up in the Lightning net. It was locked at 2, and then with 5 minutes to go the other team scores, but we're going to pull the goalie and like we could still tie it up and go to OT. Like I don't know. The team is so good, and there's been maybe two, maybe I'm being too generous, maybe three like losses this year that were like, all right, I'm gonna kick my feet up because I know I'm not doing a post game bench interview after a win. Like this team always seems to be in it, and I don't think they're frustrated. Perhaps on the outside, fans might be frustrated because it does seem like we could win every game, but this team just has to find a way to eliminate those mistakes that somehow seem to result in goals for the other side. Like, I don't know how it happens, but I feel like that's been my overall take. We have a great group. They have all the elements that they need to win. When they lose, it's just like that one play, the one play. And that was the game changer.
People always told me, when we were winning the cups and went back to back, it's like, oh, you feel so good now that you won cups. It's like, no, you want it even more now because you feel like your team is so good and can do that. I think they've definitely improved this year, and I'm excited to see where they can go. But Gabby, I wanted to ask you, because you all this experience now, you've been with the Lightning for 4 years. What would be your one piece of advice for a younger sports reporter that wants to follow in your footsteps?
Uh, Good question. I kind of said it initially, but when I was really young in college, I think I just tried to be available for whatever opportunity came my way. Guys, I remember like my roommates making fun of me for lines that I probably wouldn't say now. I was like commenting on the weather when I was covering like Penn State field hockey games outside. Like, all right, it does come into play when you are playing outdoors. But did I want to cover field hockey? Even though I played it, not really. But it was just something to get me reps and a feel for live game action. So I would say yes to everything. And even now, like I my husband actually gave me this piece of advice. I was asked to do something for the Lightning. I can't even remember what it was. I don't know if it was on like a off day for the players, which is usually an off day for me, or I just had a lot going on that day. I didn't really want to say yes. And I think I bounced it off of him. Hey, so and so asked me to do X, Y, or Z. Like, I don't really want to. And his response, without even really getting into details of what it was, what would you have said if this was your first year on the job? I was like, I would have said yes in a second. He's like, well, there's your answer. Like, you're never too good. You should always say yes, always be available for whether it's a great opportunity, even if it's something that you're not excited about, it might lead to something else. And then Michael, I would say that getting this job was the first time in my professional career where it wasn't necessarily me begging for the position. Like, I had known my boss through working for News Channel 8. It seemed that he thought I was doing a good job, even when I wasn't really trying to impress him. I wasn't working for him. So when this position came about, I obviously expressed interest, but they also thought of me as a good candidate, which I thought was really cool because, again, that was just a natural. It wasn't me all of a sudden like pretending like I was really on it and then I knew hockey and da 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 da. But he had seen me over the years and thought that I would be a good fit. So you never really know who's watching, and also it is a lot of who you know, and you shouldn't take that as I better fake it and be a good sport for everyone that I meet, but like just genuinely be yourself, and I think that goes a long way.
Gabby, one of the last things that we do with all of our guests when they come on is what we call the Bolt Report's Lightning Minute. So I got a couple of rapid fire questions for you, just some fun ones to kind of get to know you a little bit. I got a timer here for a minute. We're going to try to get through as many questions as you can. I think the most questions we've ever had answered was 11. So we'll see if you can get through more than that. Are you ready to go?
I'm scared. What if I only answer like 2?
Don't be scared. It'll be no problem at all. All right, here we go. We're getting ready the timer to go, and I'll start it once I ask the first question. Okay, so first one, favorite hockey player.
I grew up in Philly, so probably at the time Eric Lindros.
Favorite hockey player to interview.
Currently on our team, who's a good interview? Ryan McDonough. He always gives very detailed answers.
Favorite arena to visit.
Ooh, I love going to MSG.
Favorite hockey game that you've ever gotten to watch.
It's got to be one in person. It would probably be that Stanley Cup final run in my first year against the Avalanche.
Favorite Lightning jersey.
Pass. I feel like I don't have enough knowledge.
Hardest sport to cover.
I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hockey. Hockey is hard.
It is a tough sport, and that's our time. Gabby, thank you so much for that. That was great. That was great. Thank you so much for coming on. We really do appreciate you having the time. We know you got a busy schedule out there for game day. Guys, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button right here so you don't miss out on future episodes just like this one. You can follow us at BoltReport_TV for all of our game day coverage as well. So Gabby, thank you again so much for coming on. We'll talk to you guys in the next one. The Bolts.